Hey, welcome to the Travel Ones podcast. Today, my guest is Mickie James. Mickie is the 6-time women's champion for the WWE, professional wrestler, a country music artist, actress, model. She's a grown-ass woman, wife, mom, and new homeowner. How are you today, Mickie?
I'm so good. How are you?
Doing excellent.
Good.
Enjoying the wonderful new day that we have here.
No doubt. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, with such a long intro, you're obviously not an overnight success. I'm still waiting to talk to my first overnight success.
I don't know if is anyone ever an overnight success? I think it takes time and dedication, because even those overnight successes have put in. It was just that one magical moment that just kind of made them blow up, but it wasn't without the hard work before, right?
Well, it's like I loved seeing Chris Stapleton win Best New Artist. And he's like, well, the first decade was good.
Yeah.
It's just how it works. You know, one of the things I was going to ask you is, how do you handle all the pots that you have cooking right now? I mean, you have a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on, and I'm grateful to have a lot going on, but it honestly, I can't do it alone. I have a great team. I mean, my husband is super supportive, and he's just as driven and goal-oriented and constantly moving and shaking as much as I am. So, and it's a good balance though, because he helps lets me, the checklist or like the little things before the big thing, right? Like I'm a big thing person. But then, obviously I have Kathy and I have my team, and WWE's always been super supportive of me as far as what I've been doing, in and outside of them. And then, and Gaw TV, like that, I have to depend on the girls so much, like Lisa and Val, that help. We do that together, so, even with being a mom and my family and my mom and my sisters, my family just helps me. It takes a village to raise and to run a business and raise a child and have a career and do all these things. So I'm just really fortunate and really grateful for those people that you have to, when you have good people in your life, friends, family, whoever, you just have to keep them close, because teamwork makes the dream work, right? That's what they say.
And they're very, very right.
Right.
I was going to ask you, what do you and Nick, your husband, who also travels for his work, how do you balance, work and then home life, especially? This year's obviously been very, very different. Yeah. So it's been a whole new balance of that kind of sort. But really, it's because we work for two different companies, for one, and that capacity, but also, our schedule are very demanding on separate levels, but we just were able to make it work and schedule our schedules around each other and just kind of know what all the moving parts are doing, but also to have to depend on my mom and my sister to help me, in those in-between moments and a lot of that stuff. So that's really, it's like a lot of communication and we have to kind of know what each other, the moving parts are doing all the time, in that sense of especially when we're out of town, but we somehow make it work and it's awesome. Yeah. Well, for my wife and I, she makes me, not that she forces me, but we have to go on a date night once a week when I'm home.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't care if it's just, down the street, but once
That's
a week.
Smart. We should implement something like that. Just like we were saying, because we've moved into this house, or we're just, doing touches, and we've been working so hard. Like I was there till 4 a.m. the other day painting, and then I realized I was like, I'm not leaving because it's too late to drive back. So I'm just going to stay, and then got up early and started working with while the, electrician's there or whatever.
Yeah,
but
everything. Our
5-year anniversary is coming up, and I'm like, I'm not working. We can go work during the day, but because we've been so busy, closing on the house. And I go you know what? We need to go out to eat or do something for our anniversary, just to separate. I know we have a lot of work in front of us with the house and stuff, but we just have to take that moment, just kind of step back. And I think that's one thing that, like you said, is I have been trying to, and we've made it more a mission for our relationship, and to set away that time, like you said, just for us, that one night, and maybe it should be once a week. Your wife's probably onto something, because I'm We have to do it at least
Don't
once
tell
a
her.
month because I find ourselves inundated with to-do lists and trying to go see this person and accommodate that person. And then, of course, business and this, that. We really have to take back those moments for ourselves, right? And I think that's one thing that this whole thing, as far as being forced to kind of sit back at home for a second, it's really made us reevaluate our time with the people that we love the most, because that's really why we're working and striving so hard, is to be able to provide for those people, right? So,
absolutely. The thing for me is like, because I travel for work, the last thing I typically want to do when I come home is go back out. I've been eating in restaurants for a week. I've been sleeping in different hotels. And so I make her give me that one night, the first night. I said, let me just get used to my own bed for a while. And then we can go out and then we make sure we do something.
I see. Yeah, because she doesn't travel. Yeah, and I guess that's the difference, is because we both travel, but I'm very much the same. Is like, I didn't want to, even in buying the house, like, I don't really feel a need to live in a big city. I don't need to live in LA or live in downtown Nashville. I want to be close to the city.
Yeah.
But I spend so much time, or so much of my life, like in hotels and downtown cities. It's like, but that I grew up in the country and I love the country. So for me, my own peace and clarity, I need to, like, once I get home, I need to be in my hermit mode. I need to be in my like little sanctuary that's like an oasis that nobody can see me, nobody knows where I am, a little bit off the grid, but not like kayfabe off the grid, right? Like, I'm off the grid in the sense of like I'm out in the sticks a little bit, but close enough to civilization, close enough to things that I can still be in the mix when I need to be in the mix. You know what I mean?
I do. We actually, with the trip I just took to Nashville, that was one of the things we really liked about it is, we went down to the Loveless Cafe. I don't know if you've eaten there. Yeah. But, you're kind of out. It's like 20, 30 minutes out south of Nashville, and you're kind of in the sticks.
A little bit, but there's so many pockets. That's what I love about Nashville too. Yeah. And Richmond, Virginia, where I grew up, is very much the same. Like I've always lived 20, 30 minutes outside the city, close enough to the airport because we travel so much. So I can't be more than 30 minutes from the airport, but because I have terrible time management skills. I'm always racing to the airport.
And it's only going to get worse with the 6-year-old.
Yeah, I know. But however, it's like I love being close enough, but it's like nice because you can find these pockets of town but you're still close enough to the city. So when you need to be there for business or whatever, and it's not that far of a drive, it's still right there. But there's so many like awesome little pockets of towns right on the outside circle of Nashville that's commutable and perfect.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
think that's why I fell in love with this city, is because it reminded me a lot. It's not too different than Richmond, as far as the city I grew up outside of, and I grew up in Montpelier outside of Richmond, but it's very similar. It still has like that old, like it still has like a country kind of feel of like where everybody's chilled and laid back and cool. And, you can it has different pockets and little areas of people, of like the art district, Vanderbilt district, the music, which used to be Broadway was all country music, but now they've kind of embraced all music. But now, like, it's the fastest growing city, I think, in the United States right now. Like, they just can't keep up with the roadways and the houses. Like, when we were buying our house, like, houses were turning around. Like, we'd go look at it and it would be gone the next day. Like, everyone's moving here and mostly a lot of people are commuting from LA because they want to get out of that LA vibe, but there's still so many people and opportunities here. But it's different because everybody's more chill and laid back, and there's not so many like boxes you have to check in order to fit in.
Absolutely.
Keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah.
I mean, just with our state government, I won't even get into that. I've been in lockdown since March. I have friends that have businesses that haven't been open since March.
I know. It's crazy. And
I go to Tennessee and everything's open.
Yeah. It's just crazy. I just don't know. And I feel like, coming into this next year, everything's going to switch and start to change. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
I don't know, as these vaccines roll out and as everything else, and everybody gets at a different state where we're just going to find this new normal. It's just going to be that, what is that new normal? I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's going to be different state to state, I think too.
Right,
country to country.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Yeah.
The one thing I was going to ask you is, you were single for most of the first part of your wrestling career. What was the hardest part of traveling as a professional wrestler?
Well, when you say I was single, but I was in relationships. You know.
Yeah.
Probably mostly failed relationships, clearly.
No.
And even, I met my husband in the wrestling business,
Sure.
When I actually had left WWE the first time and then went to a different company, which was really strange because I almost didn't go there. I didn't go. It was just because I had just left WWE and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was going to continue to wrestle. I just wasn't ready to just leap right to a side ladder, right? Like I was just kind of taking a moment. So I went there and then I met him like a month later, 2 months later. Like it's just weird how it all, because it's like if I never had went and transitioned to that other company, I would have never met my husband, who I love, and now we have a beautiful son. And it's crazy how life works out, because if you would have asked me then, I was so upset that when I left WWE then in 2010. But that transition really changed my life in a sense because it opened up all these other opportunities, which I felt in that moment was like, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. I just lost my dream job, yada, yada, yada. But then you look back at it now and here we are 10 years later, and I'm so happy and fulfilled in the sense of like that balance of like being able, and it's going to work. It's not easy, like you say, like relationshiping is hard on any level, and growing together and learning each other and, trying to be supportive of their goals without giving in on your own goals. It's all of these balances, and it's like an ego check, right? Like it's a big ego check, I think, for us all, because especially once your kids come into the mix, right? Because then you've lived your whole life putting yourself and your own goals first, and then it's taken that step back of like, for me, now I just look at everything because I don't put myself first, whereas I always did. It was because in the entertainment business, and this is true across the board, I'm sure anybody would say this, it's a very selfish business, and you have to be selfish, and not in an ugly way.
No.
But you just have, it's just the way that and I've always been that way. And so it really was amazing how I thought it was going to be hard for me to sidestep. It was a lot harder for me to do it for my husband than it was for my son. The minute that my son was born, my whole world changed, because immediately that thing that was really hard for me to be like, I am selfless in a lot of ways of like giving and doing a lot, nurturing for other people and trying to help people. But I still always had put my goals and myself first, whereas the minute he was born, it just immediately changed. And that's just, I don't know if that's just a natural thing that happens, or maybe some people it does and it doesn't, but for your husband or for your wife or whatever, that's not an immediate, or your girlfriend or whatever, that's not an immediate switch that happens, right? Like, so, yeah.
That's cool, because that's exactly how I took it too, And it's interesting because 11 years ago, when the economy crashed and we had the big recession, everyone was freaking out, including me. Changed my life, my professional life. But because of it, I got the job I have now. I got the wife I have now. I've got, everything's going great. And I try to remind my daughters or even their friends and some of the young people that haven't been through like what we're going through now with the pandemic. I'm like, good things will come out of it. Just like getting off WWE. Yeah.
Well, you think about that, it's like that 10-year cycle or whatever, and it always cycles back around things. And if you think about this year, even this decade closing off of like 2020 closing off, and and now we're going to roll into 2021, and just like a lot of monumental things that happened this year. But I do believe that in our own personal lives and our own personal growths and losses, and we don't see those, especially when they seem like massive losses, like our jobs and stuff like that. It seems so, and we just can't allow ourselves to get into that lack mentality or that space of depression about it, but like more in that sense of, okay, like I do find truth in that, like when one door closes, you have other doors that open to you. And sometimes, you know what I mean? It's just, sometimes you have to be okay with that door closing in order to see those doors sometimes. You know what I mean? But it's weird how that works out, you know, and you think about what you said, and now your life is completely different, and it probably wouldn't have been there had that thing that felt so horrible at the time and was probably pretty crappy, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
That didn't happen because it forced you into this transition, into a change, and we as humans are terrified of change. You know what I mean? Like we are creatures of habit. We like things and like our organized, like change is scary for a lot of people. And so people don't leap out and make those changes unless they're forced to, you know?
I totally agree because I'm very much planned out like that.
Right.
And
we have our 5-year plan, our 10-year plan, our yearly. Right.
I have a store owner. This is a real quick story in San Diego. And I go out to my thing and I'm talking to him and he goes, "Hey, you going back by the airport?" And I go, "Yeah, actually I am." You know, he goes, "Hey, can you take me to the airport?" And I go, "Sure. What time's your flight?" And he goes, "I haven't booked it yet." And I'm like, "Okay." I go, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Israel." I'm like, "What?"
You haven't booked your flight
yet? So he
so
goes,
that's
"Yeah."
A little bit. I mean, I can see like booking a last minute flight to Vegas or New York or like those, you know, quick Florida, whatever. But to Israel, like I know we've had like because of like flight issues and then had to last minute switch a ticket. And then it goes through a weird system when you do that with international.
Absolutely.
Like you get like a double flag sometimes. Yeah.
He was telling me. So he goes, so we get done at a store. I think it was his brother at the time, took over for the store. I drive him to his house. He tells his wife and their 2 kids, like, "I'll be back in 10 days. And I go, "Holy shit." I'm sitting there like, "What the hell are you talking about?" We get in the car, we drive to the airport and we're talking. He's literally booking the flight one way. He said and because it had to be one way because Israel won't take you in if you have a round trip. Sometimes they'll just turn you back around. And I'm like, "What?" He goes,
That's crazy.
But if it's one way, then you can go other places. I was like, "Oh my God." And to me, I came home and I'm like, for me, I'll pack a day before my trip. You know?
Yeah, me too. I do OCD. I have a certain specific. I have like my bag. One of my travel bag is always halfway packed.
Yep.
Like I have like my travel toiletries and certain stuff. There's always it's always in case I get a call and I need to fly out that day. I'm halfway there, but I like to have my time to pack the day before and do laundry and make sure I have all my options because I'm too OCD about it. Yeah.
So it blew me away. I'm like, I could never do that. And my wife Wendy's like, "You will never do that to me. You will never come home saying you're going to be gone for 10 days. See you later."
Right.
She's like, "That's not happening."
She's like, "Not unless you're taking me with you."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then we can talk.
Especially when you're talking about you're going to Israel. I'm coming too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? And
it better be a 2-ticket trip.
Exactly. And she would definitely want the round trip.
Yeah.
So, how do you fill your time when you're traveling, whether it's flying or driving or whatever? I mean, are you listening to music, watching movies, doing computer work, resting?
I don't watch a lot of movies. I've been trying to get better, but I find myself when I sit down, unless it's a really good movie that a friend of mine's in and that I've been told to watch, or if I'm studying something out of, or if I get locked into a lot of series and like period pieces and stuff. But I'm more of I listen to music. I listen to audiobooks on tape.
Oh, nice.
I listen to, or I would have driven miles in silence, like just nothing, but just thinking and creating. Because I spent so much time, I think, in my car, like traveling from city to city. We typically, if we were wrestling, I would fly in town on a Friday and then do the show and then drive the 200 miles or whatever it is to the next town that night after the show. So I was already in town. So I did that. I've done that I've been wrestling for over 20 years now, but like full time as my career, for 15 years, where that was kind of just 200 days out of the year I was traveling. So I just spent a massive amount of time, and I've always been a learner in that sense of like, because it is my creative time and my business handling time in the car. I always have traveled alone a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Except for here and there. So I would spend an hour just driving in silence and just like thinking or creating in my head and just talk. It's weird to have those conversations with yourself, but like, would this work? Or how about this song as I'm writing songs or whatever? Because sometimes if you have music on in the background, and I've done this, so you'll start writing to a melody that you just heard and without even realizing it, which is okay, but it's just, you know, you want your stuff to be different as well. So
that's interesting. Yeah. You're one of the very few guests that I've had that I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because I have so much going on. There's times when I just turn everything off. I'll roll all the windows down, open up the sunroof. Because I always tell people I drive for a living and I do meetings in between.
Right. Well, and I appreciate sometimes, especially if you got a gorgeous view, like if you're driving through the mountains or you're just driving. There's so many places that you just see these picturesque places. And it's like, sometimes we distract ourselves sometimes, which I love music and I love my audio tapes and I love my meditation music and I love all that stuff. But sometimes I just need the silence to really sit back and take a breath and appreciate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we are afforded this opportunity to drive in, or we do have all these things. It's like, you have to sometimes take those moments to really sit back or like think about what's going on in your head instead of just letting all these thoughts run rampant all over the place, you know?
Yeah. And for me, it allows me to click, actually, like, it's like how they say, if you say it out loud, it can happen. For me,
it's more powerful, right? Especially if you say it out loud. You say it in your head, or you think about that, like even if you say your prayers at night, or if you do or don't, or whatever. But you do those in your head. But when you speak it out loud and you speak it in that present moment, it's so much with emotion. It's so much more powerful, right?
Yeah. And with all your driving and all that, do you ever take extra time to see the local sites, or is it just get in and get out?
It depends on the town.
Yeah,
like I always, because we spent so much time, and like obviously when we were on tour and these were destinations, and I thought like, oh, this is the first time I've ever been in Paris, and this is the first time I've always been the one like, let's go. I don't care if we only, because those UK tours, those overseas tours were brutal sometimes. Yeah. Because we were on a bus. We were always traveling late at night. We'd have to all get into the hotel at the same time at like 3-4 in the morning. And it was just a lot to then get up, make sure that you got up early enough in the day to go work out if you were going to go work out that day. And if it was a city that I'd been to, like Birmingham a bunch of times at that point or whatever. But if I was in Paris or Milan or something, I'm like, I'm going to get up super early so I can go work out or get whatever I need to get done, because I want to go see the city before we have to get on the bus at 4 o'clock or whatever it is to go do the show, because then we're driving on to whatever city is next. But when I'm driving and we're driving in the States and doing those US tours, or even still, like, I always look at my route and try to see if I'm not just driving straight to the town, or if it's too far a drive, like what's a really cute town. Like I love those like little hidden gem towns, where there's like a little history, and like I always look for like the local coffee shop in the morning, instead of going to the Starbucks. Like I like to experience and go to those places. I'm not huge into chain stuff. Not that I don't love Starbucks. I'm not saying that, because I need coffee to survive, and sometimes Starbucks
they're the ones that are there.
Yes, they don't have a specialty bougie coffee shop diner.
Well, see, that's literally how I came up with the name of my show, The Travel Wins, because when I first started, everything was around how much sales did I do, how much money did I make today, and it's very wearing. Especially if I'm in LA and if I have to get to San Francisco, it's a 8-hour drive. And then you drive 7 hours and you do a meeting. I went to Hawaii to see an account on Maui, and they didn't show up. And you're like, hold on, I just flew 3,000 miles. What? And they're like, well, she's sick today. And I'm like, cool. Okay.
So is she going to be sick tomorrow? Because I'm here until what?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. But then you go like, so did you go out and go on a whale tour and a booze cruise? Or
what I've tried to do, I'm like you, where if I'm going to Salinas or something, I'll always try and find something else to see and do. That way I can have a win without making it just about how much did I sell today.
Right.
So I feel accomplished, even though maybe I had a really bad day of sales.
Yeah.
But I can still have a good day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then
and sometimes making memories is more important than making money,
Yeah. Well,
because you'll remember those forever, like hopefully, God willing.
Because when I started this job, my kids were in high school. And so I knew I was going to miss their game, or I was going to miss something. And, and then if I only made it about sales and money, then I'd be in my hotel room at night going, God, what the hell am I doing here?
Right. Stressing out instead of enjoying it and just going out and seeing the local restaurant, the steakhouse or whatever.
Anything. Just making
Right. I love that.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, because you brought it up about waking up early to work out or whatever. How important was your fitness regimen when you were traveling, as well as the diet? How did you stay on diet when you're traveling around the world?
They go like, oh, it's so hard to do when you're traveling. It's not, actually. I'm not one of those people, because these are like, I used to be the person who had, like, at least when I was home, I was like, okay, I'm eating this, and that. I have my chicken, I have my rice, I have my broccoli. I just don't want to eat like that anymore, because I like you said, I like going to these restaurants. I like to experience the food. I'm very much a foodie. As I've grown up in life, I realized that's really important to me. I actually will, instead of scarfing down my food, I'll take the time to enjoy my food, because I actually enjoy what I'm eating rather than, but anywhere that you go, you can, make the modifications. You can say, hey, maybe put the butter on the side, or, don't season it with salt, or whatever you want or you need. You can always make those modifications, and there's options. There's even fast food healthy options at this point. Like everything's everything's kind of cultivating over to a healthier lifestyle kind of thing, or to give you that option if you want to, you know what I mean, without feeling awkward about it. So I love that, but I also love food. So it's just a matter of, and when I say I get up, I'm not a morning person by nature. I'm a night owl. I stay up till, it's not uncommon for me to be up until 3:00 in the morning. Like that's when my brain operates better. I create better at night. I think I've done that to myself because of so much travel and late night travel through the years. And so it's just hard because that's when naturally my brain kind of gets going. So when I'm up early, it's because I have to be up early.
Welcome to a 6-year-old. Yeah.
Right. Well, luckily, this is this balancing act, and my husband loves me so much because he knows I'm not a morning person. And it's not his favorite thing, but he takes the morning shift usually. When he says, babe, will you please get Donovan in the morning? I'm full on, night shift all evening, homework, dinner, everything else most times. I mean, he'll do every now and then, but that is kind of our balance. He typically takes the morning shift, even though he curses me sometimes about it.
No comment. I've already been through that, and I can't wait for the grandkids. But boy, that's a lot of work. Yeah. Those early mornings, and it's like, oh God, I used to hate it, like having to get up and make those early morning flights, and like racing to the airport for a 5 a.m., 6 a.m. flight, and I'm like, because I'm a night owl and I couldn't shut my eyes last night, I probably only went to bed 2 hours ahead of time. And that whole time I spent with one eye open going, please don't miss my flight. Yeah. See, you and I are very, very, very similar. I'm the same way.
Well, I'm in this space now where I've told him, because I used to do that. I was like, I got to get the first flight back home. And then I realized how unproductive that was for me, because I wouldn't get any sleep.
Yeah. And then you'd be
to make this early flight, get home, and then I'm exhausted and then useless. So now I've made that conscious decision for me and my own betterment of not taking that first AM flight and taking the later, like the 8 a.m. or the 10 a.m. flight. And so I can get a decent night's sleep. And then when I get home, I'm actually functionable, and feel like somewhat human.
I worked NFR, and we'd work 16 straight days. And then I'd always get done Sunday night. And then for the first couple of years, I'd go, I want to be home. So I would drive home, and it was like, and then I'd be dead, for the next day anyways. So, and traffic's worse going from Vegas to LA on Sunday nights because everyone's coming back. And it turns us into a 6-hour drive, and it's usually a 4-hour drive.
Right.
And
then you're miserable the next day. And it's not like,
So now I stay to Monday, and I'm just like, and then I wake up, and whenever the checkout is, 11 o'clock, whatever, at the MGM, then I leave.
Rock and roll, go home, and then you got everything accomplished. And it's amazing how much work I get accomplished in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Because it's just me and whatever else, so I can actually get some of these, whereas home, you're so obligated to, like, okay, I got to take care of Donovan. I got to pick him up from school. What time is that? And then we have this appointment over here. And then I got, I don't want him to be watching me working on the computer all the time. So it's like we go do those activities. By the time I sit down in front of the computer, it's 9 o'clock at night because he's finally in bed. And then I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, so very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, hey, I know you got to get running, and I thank you so much for the time. I really actually feel happy and blessed to talk to you because we're very similar.
Oh, yay. Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to talk to you. I appreciate it. You gotta hit me up when you're in Nashville.
Or
next time.
Yeah, if you ever get time in LA, if I'm around.
Yes. Yeah. I do. I would love LA. I can't wait to come back. I'm always trying to find a reason to come out.
It was so cool. Troy hit me up about a month ago. He was in downtown LA for a video shoot. And he hit me up. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I go, "I'm actually home." He goes, "Come on down." So I actually gave him a little tour because I asked him. I said, "Do you ever see L.A.?" He goes, "No." Usually, he would come in and do shows with Big and Rich, and and he didn't get this. So I gave him the nickel tour of L.A. and Hollywood and all that. So and then I took him over to the airport. So it's kind of cool.
He's an amazing man, Troy. I love him so much.
He's a good dude.
Just genuine good people, and just so talented, but just. He looks so intimidating when you first see him, and then he's just the biggest, lovablest, just good, genuine soul. I love him.
Well,
I love him.
I could see people saying that about your husband, who is a wall of a man as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Nick, we always joke because I'm like, I feel people are because they just don't, I don't know if it's the British or whatever, because, unless you know him, I don't know that he comes off super approachable,
Yeah, it's like Troy. Troy is like the nicest guy in the world, and we've gone out when we've been at NFR and all that, and people will buy him a drink and all that when we're out, and he goes over and talks to him.
Right.
And I'm like,
that's sweet.
I'm like, okay, dude, you just left me at dinner, but
he's like, I'm still over here. He's just like, oh, I'm just mingling.
Yeah, that's
I do the same. I'm like, oh gosh, that's so funny.
What's the best way? I don't want to forget this. What's the best way for my listeners to follow what you have coming up and going on?
Well, they can the easiest way is just go to mickiejames.com, MICKIE, James, JAMES.com. It has my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook. You can also follow us on GAW TV if you're a YouTube watcher. It's our TV, and we're just going to launch our podcast come the new year. Super excited about that. And it's just myself and my two friends, and that's GawTV.com, or you can find that at GawTV, whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty, you type in my name in the thing, and it usually has the check mark if you're a social media person, except for TikTok, just because I just got on that one and I don't know what I'm doing. So, pretty simple, but yeah.
And then you will be coming back in the WWE, right? With
of course, darling.
But of course.
But of course, darling. Yes. Well, I was just announced to come back for, and it's so weird to say, to come back for the Legends show.
You're a legend.
In January, the first episode in January of Monday Night Raw, so next week. But it's weird to say that out loud, like the Legend show. I'm like, am I a legend? I don't know. It's funny because some of the coworkers and younger girls will say that in joking, or like I've said it in jest of like, oh yeah, Legend Mickie James, ha ha ha, but never with not real life, really where I thought of myself as I don't think of myself as a legend. So it's like, because when I think legend, I think of the people that I look up to, who I think of as legends. So it's just weird. It's a weird space to be like, oh, wait, they're serious. Like they're serious. Okay, I am a legend.
Well,
that's cool. It's amazing, and I'm grateful, and it's a huge honor. But at the same time, it's weird to say or to even speak it out loud. I'm like, oh, so strange.
That's an athlete thing, because I've talked to a couple NFL players, and one had just retired, And I'm like, okay, he's 27. I'm like, hold on.
Unbelievable.
You're not
Good
retired. You know, he's retired from football because, you know.
But not from, not from, you know, life or like there's so much. Imagine being able to retire at 27 and still having the whole world in front of you of a blanket of things that you could do.
Well, that's what
will do.
I was telling Marcus, actually, I was just talking to him yesterday. I just say I quit or I got fired.
Right.
I don't tell people I retired from selling cabinets, you know, because the company, yeah. I used to sell cabinets, but I retired. So now
well, it's just like, I don't think I'll ever retire from the wrestling business because I love it so much. I'll always be a contributor to some capacity somewhere because I just love it and I'm passionate about it and I'm good at it. I have dedicated a lot of my life to cultivating this craft and to being the best, or at least the best that I could be. So I don't think once it's in your blood like that, it's like, I don't really know that we might be retired from professionally going out there and doing that physical sport. But as far as it being a part of our lives in some capacity, I think if you have a love and passion for something, like you'll never stop doing it to some level.
MMA fighters are the same way.
Yeah, even if it's like coaching the local kids team, like you'll still find yourself dabbling in it somehow because you love it too much. You can't not.
Yeah,
you know?
I got a buddy that's coaching the high school wrestling team because he retired from fighting. So
that's amazing, and how lucky are those kids to have a mentor like that? Yeah. Like it's just incredible. And I think sometimes, like especially when you've dedicated so much time, it's like the best thing that you can do to give back in that capacity to still get that same fulfillment on a different level from it. You know.
Yep. Do you have any thing coming up with the music with the?
Well, you know, ironically, we just released the 10th anniversary album of my very first album that I released in 2010. And so we just put that back out. It just came out on Christmas. So it was like a lucky surprise to our fans, or to my fans, and put that back out. But I've been working this whole time as we've been, you know, locked down on this new album that, you know, we'll have some singles coming out come the new year and the full album hopefully out, you know, middle of the year of Perfect. All originals, all songs that I co-wrote on with fellow songwriters back home in Virginia, and, you know, I have some other people. I'm constantly writing and trying to work and find the right songs for this album. But yeah, it's all going to be stuff that I wrote. So I'm super excited about that one. And yeah, lots of stuff.
There you go.
Hopefully touring will start again at some point.
Yeah.
But we'll see what that looks like. Yeah.
Who knows? I mean,
yeah.
All the musician friends I have are sitting and waiting as well. I think they got hurt the most.
That touring and, you know, live events and like theatrics and anything like that, like the touring market. I think Live Nation canceled everything for 2021 already. Like it's just like they're planning for 2022 at this point. I'm like, that's crazy to think. But you think about it, like a lot of those fairs, and I just know from like trying to, you know, getting booked or whatever, like the fairs for 2021 were already booked last year. You know, like, so if you're trying to get on a fair, like a booking, unless you're like, you know, Kenny Chesney or like a huge name.
Even those guys though.
Yeah, like those bookings are already booking out in 2022 at this point anyway for like those big events. I
had Chris Gratton on my show, and he was a tour manager for Justin Bieber, and it was a week after he had just laid off 83 of his staff because they had canceled 2020. This was back in April, and they were supposed to be on tour for 9 months. And he goes, Bieber 2020 just turned it into Bieber 2021. So I'm going to give him a call and see. And he said the most important person in his world was the NBA commissioner. Because the NBA gets first dibs on all the arenas around the country, and then they have to, whatever's left over, they split up between everybody else. So he said the NBA was the big.
But they weren't even really running at first.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, then they bubbled up. Yeah.
Yeah. So. It's crazy. And when you think about it too, it's like when those big tours, it's not just the artist it's not just the artist or the talent, the musicians and stuff that are suffering when all this stuff gets shut down. It's
The roadies.
people who work in the venue that are working the convenience stands and all that stuff. It's the people, the custodians that are cleaning the venues and stuff. It's the ticket holder, like ticket box.
The merchandise
all these
people.
Other people. It's a trickle down effect. It's a trickle down effect, and it's just affected all of us, on so many different levels. But it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year, and I'm ready for it.
Come on, 2021. I can't wait. That's what I'm saying.
I'm with you on that one, my friend. A couple more days.
Yeah.
All right, Mickie. Well, again, I thank you for the time. It was awesome talking to you, and I wish you the best.
Oh, so great talking to you, too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great 2021.
You too. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it.
All right, Mickie. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.